catch me howling at the moon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Mondays Down South. Another week, another episode, another relevant week of sports. So we're excited. I'm not going to waste any time. We don't really even need to make introductions because, come on, this is just commonplace at this point. Let's just jump right into it. Hot takes, FZ, what you guys got for me? I know you guys said you came up with something, so let's hear it.
I love it. My hot take is kind of a few different things that I wanted to mention that I'm balling into a hot take. So it's a lot of incompetent decision-making around the NFL by front offices and head coaches. So I'm going to point out a few things that I find to be ridiculous here. The first one, so my friend group here is a bunch of incompetent football teams, which is the Washington football team, of course, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets. So what those two have in common is they both had Adam Gase at one point. Apparently, the New York Jets, if they had to pick between Sam Darnold and Adam Gase, they would pick Adam Gase, saying that Sam Darnold is a bigger problem than Adam Gase, which to me, and they think Adam Gase is like some offensive genius and he's like, the next coming of whoever. So I'm just going to put that out there. We were talking about that. I think that is absurd to me. I mean, I'm higher on Darnold than most, but that is just mind-blowing to me. So that's one. The other one is the Los Angeles Chargers, who have said that Tyrod Taylor is still their starter after Justin Herbert went out there on like 5 minutes notice and almost beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Granted, more so because the defense played well, but Herbert was great. So if they actually do that, unfathomable. And then the third I blame less on bad decision-making because I don't think there was much opportunity, but how did 31 teams pass on Cam Newton? I mean, he's been ridiculous. I mean, granted, I don't think there were many landing spots for him, but I still question how he slipped through the cracks all offseason and got to Bill Belichick. So those three are balled into my hot take on just crazy front offices and incompetence.
All right, I'm gonna start off here because I love every single thing you just said, Evan. A good example of Adam Gase is so Cy and I play basketball with one of shout out Julian Fedulian if he ever listens to this podcast, but he comes out and he plays some 21 with us, and we play with him pretty consistently, and so he did not know who Adam Gase was because he's more of a New York Giants fan, not a Jets fan. And so I had to show him the press conference video of Adam Gase with his crazy eyes looking around the room like a maniac. I'm not sure if you guys have ever seen this, but if you haven't, it's an immediate must watch. But anyways, it just kind of goes to show you, I think Adam Gase gets too caught up with player-to-player drama. He's kind of gone off on Le'Veon Bell, not just this season, but last season. He also played Le'Veon Bell when he was already injured week 1. I don't think that was a very smart decision because it just prolonged his injury. You also have a guy like Jamal Adams who he's balling out on Seattle right now, unleashing the potential that we saw that was kind of bottled up a little bit in New York. But even Jamal Adams in press conferences has thrown some shade at Adam Gase because he's like, I'm not bored anymore. On the sidelines, I get to watch my quarterback actually move the ball on offense and actually make productive plays. I also feel like I'm able to catch my breath when I'm on the sideline. So, Adam Gase is clearly doesn't just have a play calling problem, but he's got a player issue. And I think the faster that the Jets get rid of him, the better. And now, switching over to the West Coast here with the LA Chargers, you've got to start Herbert. And I'm a Virginia Tech guy. Love Tyrod Taylor, but let's not make the same mistake that Cleveland made, trying to prolong Tyrod Taylor's starting position, and then they finally gave the keys to Baker. And just in that specific season, Baker's rookie season, he went off. He had displayed a ton of potential, won way more games than Tyrod would have won. So I just think ultimately these GMs and these front offices need to think clearly. They don't necessarily need to go with what's expected or what was expected before the season. They need to go with their intuition and understand that these young guys can play, so give them the keys.
Yeah, so I'm going to touch on Gase really quickly. The main point with him being, and obviously we're all agreeing on this one, and I think everybody in America, with the exception of the Jets ownership, is agreeing with this. That's not no offense, Ev, but that's not a hot take. That's a very obvious statement. Like Adam Gase has been nothing he has ever done has proven that he deserves to be a head coach outside of what was it like be an offensive coordinator or a quarterbacks coach with Peyton Manning, who was a better coach than Gase ever will be or ever was, like on the field. Like that's ridiculous. Like that is the biggest mystery. Like if Mythbusters ever did an episode on the NFL, it should be about Adam Gase, because I just do not understand why people have so much confidence in a guy that has never, ever shown the ability to, one, succeed in terms of like winning, and two, be a real true leader. Like he's never gone anywhere and had the players like support him. Like everywhere he goes, the players are just like, dude, like they never stand up for this guy. They got nothing good to say about him. And clearly there's a lot of issues with them. And for some reason, people aren't willing to acknowledge it. And I'm not even that big on Darnold. But I personally feel like the personnel moves the Jets made have not been that bad, because it's not like a team that's supposed to win right now. Their goal is to be competitive long term. So they sign decent guys on very small contracts, like Jamison Crowder, Brashad Perriman. Those guys like are solid players. Like we're not just talking about scrubs. And Darnold, I think, has the potential to be good. But the key point here being that Gase just doesn't know how to succeed, and he's proven it time and time again. And I don't know what it's going to take for teams to give up on him. I just don't get it. There's so many better head coach people that are available for you to put into that role. So I just don't get it. That's the key. Secondly, Herbert it's obvious. It's not just for the sake of his development, but it's also for the sake of the Chargers legitimately competing this year. The Chargers can go compete. If you can go take the Chiefs to overtime and almost beat the Super Bowl champions, who week one decimated the Texans. Like this wasn't like a team that came out of the gates cold. Like they were playing well. And Herbert went out there with no preparation to start, like fully expecting to just sit on the bench and watch. Went out there and put his team in a position to win. And like Evan said, the defense was a lot to say about it. But he's got the weapons around him. He's got the pedigree. And Herbert, it's not like he played 1 year at Oregon and immediately went to the NFL. He was one of those guys that came into the draft more NFL ready than probably most, because he had several years of experience and he was touted as a high tier prospect for several years. So he needs to start. And as far as the Cam thing goes, I know it's easy to say it now because obviously 2 weeks in, we're seeing how well Cam is playing and the numbers he's putting up and the fact that the Patriots are being competitive. But I also question if a lot of teams felt like they would have been able to have that same kind of success without somebody like Bill Belichick taking the keys and putting Cam in that position. Because I think, admittedly, him going to the Patriots, one, he was willing to take less money because he was playing for a successful franchise, so it wasn't as a high risk for them to sign him. And then the other part of that being that the Patriots immediately take a lot of pressure off the person. I have never seen the Patriots lose. You could put Matt Castle in there and they'll win 11 games. So admittedly, Cam Newton is playing great football and I got to give him credit for it, but I'm also not shocked that the rest of the league was a little bit tentative to pay that guy a lot of money coming off injuries and coming off several not so great seasons after his MVP one. But again, the Patriots do what the Patriots do, and they always manage to get the high values for basically nothing, and it's absurd, and it's just what's going to happen. So yeah, Zach, your hot take, man.
All right, so my hot take is the lack of a preseason, because when you look at the Atlanta Falcons Dallas Cowboys game, there were a multitude of issues that I'm not even going to talk about. I'm not.
Is this an excuse coming?
I'm not going to mention the 20-0, the 20-0 score at the end of the first quarter. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the 4 fumbles that Dallas committed, and at one point, and that was just in the first quarter. So at one point they were averaging 16 turnovers in the game. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that either. I'm going to talk about the reason why Dan Quinn has not been fired yet is simply because, in the way Arthur Blank, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, stated, we're not going to fire Dan Quinn because there wasn't a preseason. These issues, like the onside kick issue, like the 16 unanswered points with 4 minutes left in the game, these issues are preseason fix-ups that you would expect to see. And so early on in the season, we're going to give Dan Quinn a pass, and we're not going to fire him as a result of these things that you would normally see in the preseason. So I think the lack of the preseason has saved Dan Quinn's butt. I am ready for this man to go. I'm done. I've been like a long advocate of my fellow bald brother, but he is. We got to kick him to the curb. It's time for a change, and that is my hot take.
I'd like to apologize to our fan base because I legitimately don't think we know what hot takes are. Like everything you guys are saying is so obvious. It's like, what if these are hot takes? No, you're 100% right. Dan Quinn should be fired, and the preseason clearly has had multiple impacts on the league thus far. 1 with game planning, 2 with bad decisions, and 3 with injuries, which obviously we could talk about all day given the number of injuries that we've seen. So yes, the preseason's had an impact. But the part that cracks me up the most about that game, and I think about this more as we talk about it, the Cowboys in the first quarter fumbled the ball 4 times, and in the first half tried 2 fake punts, which did not work. And they still won the game. They still won the game. Like, how do you lose that game, dude? Literally, I've never seen a team try to hand the game over more easily than they did, and somehow they win that game. So that goes to show, like, even with all those mistakes, it was still a close game, which is, like, not a good look on the Falcons. And it's kind of weird to me, too, because your offense does look really, really good. But I can't figure – it's got to be coaching because it's not like the talent isn't there. It's not like Matt Ryan didn't play well. Admittedly, your defense isn't great, but, I mean, I feel like they did enough to hang in the game, and they're forcing fumbles here and there. It literally just comes down to, like, coaching and not being able to, take the foot off the pedal, like, starting all the way from that Super Bowl, which we don't have to talk about right now. But it just seems like a consistent trend ever since then. And I think the only reason you guys still have Quinn is because he got to the Super Bowl 1 year. That's it. Like, that should not be good enough for a guy to get a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth chance. Like, I just don't get that. Like, head coaching is some of these decisions are just absurd to me because there's so many people out there that you could give a legitimate opportunity to right the ship with the talent, and people just wait too long, in my opinion. But yeah, whatever you think.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I have so many questions about that game. And very disappointing that you let the Cowboys have a free win and that the Washington football team could be the only team still with a win in that division. So very disappointing, Zach. The onside kick, I still wonder. I'm not sure what happened there. They were just watching the football as it rolled and rolled and rolled. You're allowed to pick it up when you're the receiving team. But yeah, no, Dan Quinn needs to go. Agreed. Yeah. But I'll pump it over. Cy, you're criticizing our hot take. So what's yours?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not even gonna throw one out here today. Like
I know that was a cheap shot.
Shout, but he doesn't have one himself.
My point wasn't to say that you guys didn't bring up good topics.
No, I know.
It's just funny because you guys called it hot takes, and I was like, nothing about those.
It's hard.
If I came out here and I said the Miami Heat are gonna beat the Celtics, they're gonna win the rest of the series without losing a game, that would be a hot take. And who knows? Maybe that is my hot take. Maybe I'm going to tell you the Heat are going to win this series in 5. I don't know. But the only reason I'm bringing that up right now is because now we get to talk about the NBA, and we get to talk about the fact that I told you all last week, do not sleep on the Heat. That team could very well win this series, and right now I'm feeling really good about that prediction. So let's start with that one. The Heat are up 2-1. The Celtics in 3 straight games have had a lead and have almost blown that lead in 3 straight games. They blew it in the first 2 games. And in the third game, they were up like 17 in the fourth quarter. And like with 1 or 2 minutes left, it was a 5-point game somehow. So I don't really know what the Celtics are doing, but this was my point about veteran leadership. For some reason, Jimmy Butler's just been chilling the first like 3 quarters of most of these games. And then the fourth quarter decides to turn into this like stud superstar that he's capable of being. It's just been such a fun series to watch, though, guys. I mean, it's like what we said coming into the series. Like, it's 2 teams that just want to dog each other and like attack on defense and just have that high intensity, high energy. So, what do you guys think of the series so far? Like, how are you guys feeling about your prediction you made last week? What do you think is going to happen now that it's been a couple days in?
I don't remember any of my predictions because I've officially repressed that entire podcast from memory. Okay, and so because last time I briefly remember saying Celtics in 6 or less, and it's certainly not looking the case. But no, I think it's a great series. Much to your point, Si. I love the defensive battle. I love the fast break points that Miami has. Miami has loads of potential with just 3-point snipers, I like to call them. Just a variety, like their entire offense is so deadly whereas you see the Celtic offense a little bit more disciplined, I would say. They just have more playmakers, I would argue, just more household names. And so it's going to make out to be a really interesting series. Based on what I've seen so far, I would like to pivot. I actually think the Heat are going to win this as well. Now kind of watching more of the series. It's a lot easier for me to say that when they're up 2-1. But I love this series. But my question to you guys is, do you think both of these teams would even take down the Denver Nuggets? Let's just say the Lakers are out of the picture. Do you think either of these teams would be able to take down a team like the Nuggets, or like the West Coast, like the Western Conference Finals? Is that pretty much your champion at this point?
No, if the Heat – actually, you know what, Ev, go first. I'll tell you because I started this one. So
Yeah, no, I definitely think that not only could either of these teams take down the Nuggets, I mean, I think it would be a good series for sure, but I think either of them could take down the Lakers. Do I think they will? Probably not. But I mean, I think they're, I think both of these teams have proven that they're, pretty balanced, pretty deep, athletic, decently. I mean, especially with Butler, the leadership factor there, and the Celtics have some leaders on their team. I mean, again, I think the Lakers are the clear favorite at this point, but I definitely think that those teams could compete, if not beat the Nuggets, and could even put up a good fight with the Lakers. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed watching the series. I think it's been a lot of fun, like we all expected. I'm going to stick to my prediction on the Celtics, but I do not feel confident about it anymore at all. So I said 6 or 7 Celtics. Obviously, 6 will be tough, but I am going to stick with the Celtics. I like the way it looks. Getting Hayward back helps them a little bit in 3, and they bounce back nicely. So I'm going to stick with them. But
I was going to say that. I think they're rounding out pretty well. Like, I said it last podcast. Like, I legitimately would be surprised if the series didn't go 7, given how even these teams seem. And the reason I picked the Heat is because I felt that when it went 7, the veteran leadership on the Heat would really be the difference. Because I think the Celtics had the potential to be up 2-1, maybe even 3-0 if they were able to close out games. But it was like the first game was your perfect example. When it was a tie game, you had Jason Tatum taking a deep step back 3, trying to. I know his idol's Kobe, but he was really trying to make a moment for himself. And on the flip side, you have Jimmy Butler at the end of the game driving to the rim, getting fouled and getting the and-1. Like, those are the kinds of plays that define a series, and you can just see that coming from the leadership of the Heat. So that's why I favored him. To answer Zach's question, not only do I think these teams could beat the Nuggets, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were favored. Like, if you went into the finals and you said Heat versus Nuggets was the finals matchup, I actually think the Heat might be favored to win that series because of. Like, look, they've lost. I think their last loss was their second loss this entire playoffs. Up until their last loss, they lost 1 game this entire playoffs and knocked out the 1 seed in 5 games so far this playoffs. So, like, I can't sit here and sleep on the Heat, man. They deserve that credit. And to Evan's point, I legitimately believe that these teams can go and, like, I'm not saying they'll beat the Lakers, but like Evan said, they can definitely be competitive and give the Lakers a run for their money. I think this kind of teases up perfectly for the other series, so we'll jump into that. But the one thing I will point out is, and I think I said this last podcast, but I don't know if I remember correctly. Look at the lack of true top tier superstars. The 2 that we would talk about are on the one team together. But when you look at it that way, it's the Lakers with AD and LeBron. But then the supporting cast of AD and LeBron almost pales in comparison to the majority of these other teams in terms of the depth that they have. Yet through leadership and through these 2 guys leading, you're just seeing you're hearing about these other players more and you're hearing their names more. But I mean, are we really going to be talking about guys like Rajon Rondo or Kuzma being amazing depth pieces as the number 3 option on any of these other teams, right? Like, that's one question that I had in my mind as I've been watching this series. So Lakers Nuggets 2-0, admittedly almost 1-1 after the Lakers had a big lead. The Nuggets came back being those comeback kids that they are. And Anthony Davis, that cold-blooded man that he is, a 7-footer, decides to hit a clutch 3-pointer in Jokic's eye. It is just not fair. Anthony Davis, you should not be allowed to have the skill set that you do at your height. It is just not fair. That was cold-blooded. I loved every minute of watching it, but I also was admittedly sad for the Nuggets. What did you guys think of that game? What do you think is going to happen in 30 minutes when this game starts? These are all questions I have for you. Let me know.
Yeah, so I think that the Nuggets are going to play their hardest game, even more so than game 2, which was very, very close. I think the Lakers, just based on based on the trend of how the Denver Nuggets have just like played this playoffs, like they obviously know that they've come back in previous 3-1 series. So I think leaders like LeBron and AD are just telling their team, reiterating, hey, this is our time to put our foot on the gas. This is not our time to take our foot off the gas pedal. So let's go ahead and try to go dominate while we can, because we want to prevent a similar series from unfolding. And so I think that it's going to be a very hard-fought game. I'm really interested in this game, actually, because I think it's going to be a battle, because I think the Lakers know that the Nuggets are going to try to steal one here, and which is going to fuel them for Game 4 and Game 5 and the rest of the series. And so you would like to see the Lakers put the brakes on here. I personally think LA is going to win in 5. I don't think this is going to be a series that goes more than that, frankly, but it all comes down to tonight, and we'll see what happens.
What do you think, E?
I mean, back to your original point about the shot. Amazing. I was so excited to come on this pod and just completely, I think I texted you, completely bash Alex Caruso for taking the game-winning shot. And thank goodness they got a second opportunity with the ball going out of bounds, drew up a nice play. And AD just, I mean, come on. Yeah, you knew he was hitting that too. I mean, he's been playing great the last, series and a half or whatever. I mean, no matter him being a 7-footer and whatnot, I knew that ball was going in, even over Jokic. So, and give Jokic credit too for a nice little baby hook down at the other end to give him the lead. I mean, just a great close to that game. But in terms of the rest of the series, I think it's going to be tough for the Nuggets to make it competitive from here. I mean, I think it'll be a great game tonight. I think they're going to put everything they've got into it. I'm going to take the Lakers tonight, and maybe in a sweep, maybe 5. But I think at this point, it's just like they're probably out of gas after, hard-fought playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you would think tonight's a must-win for the Nuggets, because going down 3-0 has always been, that point of curse. But the thing with the Nuggets is they've shown you in back-to-back series is like no lead or no series lead, whether it's within the game or whether it's within the series, is unsurmountable in their minds. And like they have that dog mentality. Like Murray and Jokic are not afraid of the spotlight. Admittedly, I just think the leadership on the other end with the Lakers is the point we're trying to make. Like, if I don't come on here and just totally bust Zach's chops for his Clippers take last week of like, oh, there's no way.
I don't remember that.
There's no way the Clippers lose that game. And I said, as soon as Zach said that, I was like, damn, the Clippers are about to lose this game. We're not getting LA anymore. And of course, that's what happened. But legitimately, I think the big difference here is I think Kawhi Leonard is a true superstar. I think I legitimately believe Kawhi is the second best player in the NBA, especially when in the big moments in the playoffs. Game 7, he did not have a good Game 7, but admittedly, he had a great playoffs. I think the difference between the Lakers and the Nuggets is, and the difference between Kawhi and Bron, and why Bron is still the best player in the NBA, is the leadership, right? Like, Kawhi is more like a hired mercenary assassin, is what one of my buddies said to me, and I was like, that's about as well as you could have framed it. LeBron is a true leader. Like, he'll go to any team and be the guy that leads the team, and that's why I think it makes it extremely difficult for the Nuggets. Another really quick thing before we move on is the AD shot that we talked about, which I can't talk about enough. 2 things I loved. One, I don't know this to be a fact, but this is my speculation. Frank Vogel designed a play previously, but that play ended up not working out, and they had to inbound again. At that point, they didn't have any timeouts, right? So my question is, do we think Vogel had 2 plays drawn up, or do we think the players and like LeBron and AD and those guys got together really quickly and said, this is what we want. Let's use Bron as the decoy and let's get AD open. And if that ended up being the case, that was one heck of a player decision. Like I love to see the players taking initiative and kind of creating that position. And the second thing being, AD yelling Kobe was our generation personified, man. Like, we grew up yelling Kobe every time we took that last shot. And for him to do it as a superstar that he is in the Western Conference Finals, as a member of the Lakers, the year Kobe Bryant passed away, I had chills. And then he went out there and talked about having that mentality and creating his own legacy. It was a beautiful moment. I loved every second of it, even though, I feel for the Nuggets. So excited about that game. Let's move on.
That's awesome. Hey, one sec, Sai. I have a live announcement. I wanted to break the news on the air here. So I feel like we need to play taps, but now that I'm moving to North Carolina, I am no longer a Washington Wizards fan. I am now a Charlotte Hornets fan, and I will be for perpetuity. For the rest of my life, I will be a Charlotte Hornets fan. I'm going to support the Devontae Graham, the Miles Bridges. We'll see if the LaMelo Ball comes on over to Charlotte. I know they have the 3rd pick, but I'm hanging up the gloves in Washington. John Wall hasn't played a game in 2.5 years. Bradley Beal wants out of the city. It's complete pandemonium. And as I make this permanent move to North Carolina, I couldn't be happier joining my Charlotte Hornets as a nice welcoming and opening. So I figured I'd let you guys know, and that is what I plan on doing.
Congratulations.
You'll be. No, I was just going to say, you'll be miserable. I respect that decision, though. I had a similar experience moving down here, so I had to switch my hockey team. And I have said if I ever flopped over to Charlotte, then the Wizards would probably be the one to go. Everyone's like, oh, you're going to become a Panthers fan. No, that one wouldn't change, but the basketball might. We'll see, though. But yeah, good for you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not like I'm joining a good team either. It's not like
you'll be miserable, but
no. So congratulations on being a Charlotte Hornets fan, and I'm excited for you to move to Charlotte. Although to be honest with you, I didn't know you were a Wizards fan because I've never heard you mention the Wizards the last 3 years. So even
kids, baby, Wiz kids.
I hear you talking about them. So in reality, I don't really feel like this is a big change for you. But to each their own. Congratulations, buddy. All right, on that.
You went from the 10th seed to the 12th seed. Attaboy.
It's like
let's do it.
It's like Zach when 1 week he's an Orioles fan, like on the back in his background, and then the next week is a Nationals fan when they're winning.
That's my AL team, man. That's my AL team.
I love it. Anyway, we'll move on because obviously football. Well, let's do a couple of quick takeaways from this weekend, because I think our focus this week is going to be on our projections for this upcoming weekend, because obviously, that's going to be the focus with this weekend already wrapping up. We know all about the injuries. We know basically the entire 49ers squad has been injured. We know all kinds of things happen. What's a matchup or a team or something specific that you guys want to point to from this weekend? Like, as opposed to recapping, I want to hear what's some takeaway, something big that popped out to you. That's what I want to know.
I've got one from last night. I don't think the Saints. Well, I guess Michael Thomas is out, but I said last week I still think they're top 3 to 5. I'm not sold on the Saints. I mean, losing to the Raiders is not a good look for me, and the offense, even in week 1, I don't think looks that explosive. And obviously, last night without Michael Thomas, that's huge. But I think Drew Brees looks old, and his accuracy is slipping. The Saints, I'm concerned about as a perennial kind of Super Bowl contender.
What do you think of that, Zach?
I would agree with it. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Mike Thomas gets back, but I just think it was a poorly coached game by the Saints, frankly. John Gruden was running hitch routes the entire game. I'm surprised Marshawn Lattimore, one of the great recognized corners in New Orleans, didn't jump one of those routes for a pick six. Outside of Ruggs, who's normally their deep threat here, they were able to kind of nullify him a little bit with just some safety help. And so the other receivers like Hunter Renfrow, Nelson Aguilar, Darren Waller, they're all running 7 to 12 yard routes. I'm just surprised that the Saints didn't take advantage of that more. I don't think, based on what happened last night, I don't necessarily think the Raiders are as good as people will probably hype them up to be, with them being 2-0 and them beating the mighty New Orleans Saints. I just think it was a poorly coached game by New Orleans. I think they need to kick themselves into high gear a little bit. That's kind of my thought on the game. But what about you, Si?
Yeah, so I think one big thing to point to last night is also penalties. The Saints, what was it, over 100 yards that they gave up from penalties last night? With a coaching staff with Sean Payton and guys like that, and Drew Brees as a leader, I don't imagine that will be something they consistently continue to do. I also think that team is completely different with Michael Thomas. Let's not undersell the impact of him. We don't know how long he's out, but when he comes back, that offense is completely different. Because even if Drew Brees is aging a little bit, we're talking about a guy who set the receptions record just last year. We're talking, legitimate top 2 to 3 wide receiver in the NFL. He completely changes the dynamic of that team. And Emmanuel Sanders is he's too old to be the number 1 on a team. You saw last night, I think he had 1 reception. So I think they'll be fine. I think Kamara is going to continue to be great. I think Latavius Murray will be involved. I don't, even if Drew Brees isn't as good as he was last year, I still think this team is a top 35 team just because defensively they're legitimately that much better. I think their game plan wasn't very good last night. I don't think they were ready for Darren Waller. Admittedly, they're not usually ready for tight ends to start off with, but Waller and Josh Jacobs and Derek Carr and that defense do deserve a lot of credit. And I actually kind of disagree with you guys. I think the Raiders are starting to form into a team that has a pretty bright future coming up. I could definitely see them being a playoff team this year, and I could definitely see them in the next couple of years really becoming one of the top teams in the AFC. Like, I'm starting to see shades of that because there's just a lot of comfortability there. And I don't know if you guys saw Jacobs last night or if you guys saw Waller last night. Those two guys, the young guys that they are at their positions, like, they look like the real deal. And Carr is looking more comfortable than he ever has. So I'm actually kind of jumping on that whole Raiders hype. Also, I might be a little bit biased because you guys know my relationship with Las Vegas growing up, and that was the first home game in Las Vegas. So it wouldn't surprise me if I find myself rooting for the Raiders every now and then. So I'm excited for them.
Yeah.
We'll move on. What about you, Zach? What do you got?
So first of all, I'm not sure if you guys were tuning in to the Chargers game, I believe. Yeah, it was the Chargers game because they had just debuted SoFi Stadium, or maybe they debuted the game before with the Rams. But like that game or that stadium is phenomenal, and they put like $5 billion into it. But I love the Death Star. I love the new Las Vegas stadium. It looks really, really cool. I feel like it's a little slept on. I mean, you get like a good aerial shot of it, and that thing legitimately looks like an aircraft in Star Wars. So, yeah, I figured I'd give them a shout out. But in terms of one of the teams that's surprising me, and I'm not sure if this is a bold prediction or not, but I actually do think Buffalo is going to finally win the AFC East. I think they're going to bump New Orleans from that spot. I'm not sure how many consecutive years at this point Bill Belichick has dominated. Well, probably a decade, right?
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah,
and so my thing is, I think Buffalo finally has the keys to really push themselves past because they still have their defense. They're undefeated right now. They're 2-0. Josh Allen is proving to a lot of his haters that he can throw the ball on a consistent basis, and he's still running it like a Mack truck. He trucked like 3 defenders in Miami last week. And then I also think the acquisition of Stephon Diggs as a possession receiver has opened up different holes for like quicker guys like John Brown. So I'm actually really, really on board with this team. I love the combination between Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, and just like the different aspects of their game that they complement each other very well. So overall, I think Buffalo has slowly but surely over the last 2-3 years put the pieces together to really make a run at the AFC East, and I think they actually win it this year. So that's kind of my early prediction.
I like that, and I think personally, I still think New England wins that division just because I'm a big coach-leaning guy. Like, I have a lot of trust in coaching, and I think just with Buffalo, like a lot of times when they're playing these better teams, they'll give them a really good competition. But I like, for example, when New England and Buffalo play each other, I expect Belichick to make adjustments because I think the one thing they do really well with New England is like they take away the best part of a team's game plan, and I don't know how Buffalo responds to something like that. So I think division record is going to be big for them because obviously Miami, especially for as long as Tua was not in there, is a team that is beatable. But also, although Miami really did give a run for money this weekend. Fitzpatrick went out there, or I should say Fitzmagic went out there and kind of balled out a little bit. So they did have a run for their money. The Jets are just a wash. Whatever. That's easy ones. Let's not even waste our time with that.
They're so bad.
But I still think I got my money on New England personally. I don't want to be biased in terms of my takeaway from this weekend, but I do want to really quickly touch.
Can I go on the Bills? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot.
What do you think, E?
I don't think we're there yet to start making any proclamations, given that they barely beat the Jets and they barely beat the Dolphins. Josh Allen has looked better, especially through the air, than I would have expected. Diggs is more involved than I would have expected. But and I do think the Bills are good. I would lean Patriots still because I think the Patriots look great. But I think let's pump the brakes on the Bills until we see what they do this weekend against the Rams. But I'll let Cy carry it away on his.
Yeah. Real quick, I think another thing that would give me more confidence is if they had a really good run game. Because with a team like that, when you have that dominant of a defense, if you can control the clock with your run game, then I feel a lot better about that team's propensity to win. I don't have a ton of faith in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss to be like those workhorse guys that are going to keep your team grounded. Although I have a lot of respect for Josh Allen and the way that he's developing. So that's just my take on the Bills. Not to be biased, but I do want to touch on the AFC South as far as like for this weekend, because that division seems like the one that's like at least up there for the one that's like really out there as far as to who's going to win. Real quick, Jacksonville, man. First of all, last week they went out there and beat my Colts after we came off to a hot start. Admittedly, yeah, we had our injuries in the middle of the game, but that's not an excuse because Jacksonville really went out there in the second half. Minshew was great. They went out there and beat us. Then this weekend, Tennessee is up big, and you just see Jacksonville climbing right back into it. Zach and I look up at the score, and Zach's like, yo, it's a 5-point game. I'm like, wait, what? And you look up and you see Minshew's having another incredible game. Derrick Henry didn't even score a touchdown, and Jacksonville almost won that game. They took Tennessee to the wire. So let's not sleep on the Jags. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to, win the division, but they're clearly giving everybody a run for their money. Tennessee, admittedly 2-0. They don't look incredible, but they don't look bad. Tannehill is playing very solid, though, so I got to give credit where credit's due because I was one of those people that said I think he's going to regress. So far to start the season, he's been that way. My Colts, of course, coming back off that loss from Jacksonville, which was a game that we felt like we should have won and we felt we blew, came back and made a statement against Minnesota and just completely dogged them on defense. So I was really excited to see that. And then Houston is 0-2, and admittedly they played arguably the two hardest teams in the AFC in back-to-back weeks, but I haven't seen a ton of excitement or a ton to be excited about going forward, except for the fact that their defense is playing much better.
Yeah, no, agreed. I've enjoyed watching Jacksonville. Always love watching Gardner Minshew play. I didn't think he was going to have a good year, to be honest, which is a real shame because I was so on him last year, and it makes me sad that I had that preseason take, and now he's playing so well so I'm happy with that. But yeah, I mean, I think Houston is the worst team but it's, to your point, it's hard to give them too much flack for losing to Kansas City and Baltimore. But I actually think at this point, Houston is the worst team in the division. And if I was picking a winner, I still think it's the Titans to lose, especially with Tannehill playing really well. I think the Colts could challenge them, but I just really don't believe in Phillip Rivers. And again, I mean, I like the Titans offense with Derrick Henry, the play action. A.J. Brown will come back. Corey Davis is playing pretty well. Johnny Smith looks good. Defense is solid. So I still like the Titans' chances, although, like I said, they don't look amazing. But, that's kind of the Titans thing.
Anyway.
That's true. Yeah, so Si, I was thinking, do you want to transfer over to Week 3 predictions based on the spread for each game?
That's what I was just going to say. So we want to do a new segment, too. We want it to be we don't want this to be the first time. We want this to be like something we do going forward. And I like the idea of setting like some sort of like a 3-minute timer and us just going in and saying, here's the matchup, here's who we think is going to win, and this is what we think the spread should be. So I think that's the way we should approach it. Like, I think
okay.
I think we should say, hey, like, I think this team is going to win this week, and I think this is what the spread should be on that game, just to create our own betting odds. That's the kind of idea we had for this segment. So, Zach, I'll let you take the reins because you're the beast that pulling those games up and throwing them out. The three of us will start throwing predictions if you want to start with those 1 p.m.ers.
Cool, that sounds good. All right,
start on Thursday.
I have all the games up. I'm not looking at the spread. After all three of us give our 30-second spiel, I'll validate what the spread is currently. All right. So the first game, kicking it off on Thursday night, the Miami Dolphins are staying in Florida, going up to Jacksonville. Miami is 0-2. Jacksonville's 1-1. Ev, what do you think the spread should be? Who do you think wins that game?
I've got Jacksonville winning. I'll put the spread at 4 in their favor. Too much offense. Minshew lights them up. Byron Jones might be out. That's my pick.
Kuna?
Yeah, I got Jacksonville. I'm going to say the spread's going to be around. I'm going to guess it should be around 2.5 to 3.5. I'll say 2.5. But I got Jacksonville winning by a field goal.
Sounds good. I'm going to say the spread is 4.5. I think Miami comes out and wins. Miami's played some close games. I know we've touched on that earlier in the podcast. I think Miami comes out and surprises some folks. So in reality, the Jacksonville Jaguars are favored by 3. So, Si, 2.5, 3.5, pretty impressive. All right, guys, so kicking it over to our 1 o'clock games, we have the 2-0 Chicago Bears playing in Atlanta against the 0-2 Atlanta Falcons. What do you guys got?
Sticking with the same order here, I think the spread should be Chicago by, say, 3 or 4, but I think Atlanta is going to squeak one out here. Hungry Dog runs faster. I don't necessarily think the Falcons are that good, but coming off that brutal loss, and I'm not sold on Chicago yet. So give me Atlanta in an upset.
I think the spread is going to be either even or it's going to favor Chicago to win by, I don't know, like 2.5. But I'll just say Chicago 2.5 to make a spread out there. But I also agree. I think the Falcons go out there and win. I think it'll most likely be a field goal game, but I think Atlanta takes care of this one at home. So I'm going to say the Falcons win by 3, but the spread will be Chicago 2.5.
Sounds good. I'm going to go with I think Atlanta. I think the people are going to bet on Atlanta. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, people were making fun of Mitch Trubisky. It was the only thing that people could talk about. So I'm going to say Atlanta minus 2.5, and I think Atlanta's going to win the game because I'm an Atlanta fan. We need a win, especially this one. Sure. So in reality, the spread is 3.5 to Atlanta.
Wow.
So people are betting on the 0-2 team to win here.
Wow.
It's interesting from a betting perspective, not to derail the quick lightning nature of this segment, but it's like the usual home field advantage is 3 points. So whoever's home automatically gets 3. Is that the same in Vegas this year without fans? I don't know.
Who knows?
Interesting.
Yeah, that is
right, carry on.
Moving forward here, we have the LA Rams playing at the Buffalo Bills. The Rams are 2-0. The Bills are 2-0. Ev, what you got?
I'm going to say this is a pick 'em, and I am going to pick the Rams on the road in a great game. Very close. But I'm going to say it's a pick 'em in Vegas.
I'm going to say that it's going to be 2.5 Rams, and I'm saying the Rams win this game by. Actually, I'm going to say the Rams win this game by a touchdown.
Wow. See, I have Buffalo. I think the spread is 2.5 going Buffalo's way, and I think Buffalo wins by 3. So right now the spread is Buffalo by 2.
Wow, nice.
2.0.
I think Zach's already looked at the odds. I'm just saying.
No, I haven't, man. I swear. It's almost like I have to get 1 or 2 wrong just so like I'm like believable.
Yeah. We'll monitor.
All right, so the next game is Ev's Washington football team going up to Cleveland and playing the Browns. So both teams are 1-1. Ev, what you got?
Yeah, I think I looked at this spread earlier. I think it's about 6 for Cleveland. I'm going to say Washington football team beats the spread but loses by a field goal.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Browns winning by a touchdown, and I'm gonna say I was gonna guess the spread would be about like 6.5 or 6 or something. I think the Browns are gonna be favored by a touchdown at home against Washington, and that's what I got them doing. I got them winning by a touchdown.
So one thing, and I did mention this on the previous podcast, Washington was going to have a tough time with Arizona because of the receivers that Arizona has, and the gunslinger Kyler Murray is against a rather not impressive secondary that Washington has. I think Odell Beckham and I think Jarvis Landry are going to cause some problems. So I think Cleveland is going to win by a field goal, but obviously the spread, as we mentioned, is 7. So we'll see what happens in that game. Another 1:00 game, the Tennessee Titans at the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are begging for a win. They're 0-2. Tennessee's 2-0. Ev, who do you got?
I'm going to say the spread is like 3 points. Let's say 1 or 2 points actually in favor of Tennessee, but I think they crush that spread. I think the Titans beat them by 2 touchdowns. I think Minnesota's terrible.
Wow.
Okay. I think the spread is going to be 2.5 Tennessee over Minnesota. I think Minnesota wins this game by field goal. I think Minnesota, they need to win more than most. I think they still have plenty of talent to win a game. I think last week they came out cold against the Colts. In week 1, they admittedly did not have a bad game early and then ended up getting, kind of blown out by the end by the Packers. And I really think the Minnesota is going to be fighting like crazy for this one, especially if A.J. Brown is out for the Titans. It gives them even more of an opportunity to win this game. So I think they win by a field goal.
I'm going to assume that Tennessee is, I bet you the spread's like 3.5, 4.5. And I think the reason behind that is Kirk Cousins had an awful game in week 2. I mean, I think he was throwing the ball 35 completion accuracy, and I think he had 3 or 4 picks. I think that doesn't change with Christian Fulton and Logan Ryan. I mean, this is a tough Tennessee defense, especially with the acquisition of Jadeveon. And so I think that Tennessee is going to win by 10 points, maybe not as much as Ev stated, but let's see here. The spread is 2.5 to Tennessee.
Tennessee, let's go.
Was that you, Side? Damn. All right, cool. So moving on, we're about halfway done here. The Las Vegas Raiders playing in New England against the Patriots.
Ooh.
I'm going to say the spread's 5 to New England.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to say that they beat that and beat them by 7 to 10 points.
I'm going to say the spread's 2.5 to New England, and I'm going to say New England wins by 3.
I think the spread is 2.5 as well to New England, and I think New England takes that by 10 points at least. I think the Raiders get stomped with a dose of reality. So the actual spread is New England 6.5.
Yeah, well, you got to give them the home 3. Because if you're saying the spread's 2.5, then you're saying you think that on a neutral site, Vegas is better. If they're giving the home 3 this year, we don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so now we're talking the beat up 49ers versus the beat up New York Giants. Who you guys got in this matchup?
Cuddy.
So this is one of my maybe bold. It's not really bold because of how injured the 49ers are, but I also think that Kyle Shanahan is going to choose to anyone that's like questionable or has any kind of injury at all. I don't think is going to play. That includes George Kittle, who was expected to play. I don't think he's going to play anymore because of how upset Kyle was with that turf, which is the same turf they're playing on this week. So I think that not only do we have all those guys out, but anyone that's 50-50, I think sits as well for the 49ers, and Kyle whines about it in the post-game presser because the Giants are going to win that game by like 2 points. But I would say that the 49ers still have a couple points in Vegas, though.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are probably going to get the 3.5 from Vegas. I actually kind of almost lean Evan's direction here because you lose both of your arguably best defensive linemen for the year to ACLs. You're out your best running back, although McKinnon looked really good. You're out most likely your quarterback, and you're out all your receivers with the exception of maybe Ayuk. I actually think that even though they're favored to win by like 3.5, I think this is one of those games where we see Daniel Jones come out there and just say, hey, I still got some potential in the future, and I actually think the Giants win this game by a field goal.
Yeah, I think Danny Dimes is begging for a good game, but I don't think he gets it. I think people realize how bad the Giants are in this game against still a pretty good defense, even without their fearsome defensive line and their corners with Sherman being out. I think the 49ers still win by a touchdown. But the spread is, I did look, it's 4.5 San Francisco's way. Huh. All right, so moving on here to the Cincinnati Bengals. Mr. Joe Burrow goes up against the Philadelphia Eagles here and Carson Wentz. Who do you guys got in this matchup?
This is a hard one. I think it's in Philly. I think the Eagles win. I'll say the spread is 6 for Philly. And I think that's about right. No, I think that's about right. I'll take the Eagles by a touchdown.
I think the spread is 4.5 Philly. That's what I think the spread is. I think the Cincinnati Bengals win by a field goal. I think Joe Burrow and that Bengals offense and that team is going to be pissed off after that Browns game last week. I think they were in multiple positions to score and, ended up having some botched plays and stuff like that. I think that team, I think Burrow is just a dog. I think there's no way he starts the season 0-3. I think goes out there and takes it. Also, Carson Wentz has not looked good. I know he's missing all his receivers, but he's not looked that good. And Miles Sanders is still playing a little bit hobbled. That Philly secondary is susceptible. I got Cincinnati in this one.
See, I think the anger is actually going to come more from the impetus from the anger is going to come more from the Philadelphia Eagles in this one. I think they're favored by 4. I would say the spread is -4 Philly, and I think they're actually going to win by 4. And so looking at the results here, the spread is actually 6. So Philly by -6 in this matchup. So we'll see what happens. But moving forward here, we have Deshaun Watson's Texans playing at the Pittsburgh Steelers in that fearsome secondary. Do you guys see the first win of the season for the Texans, or do you see a 3-0 performance from the Steelers?
3-0 for Pittsburgh, easy. Yeah, well, maybe not super easy. Give them a 6-point win. I'll say the spread is about 5. 5, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say the spread is 3.5. Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh wins the game just because of how dominant that defense has been. And I do think to a certain extent home field will help them out. But I think it's going to be closer than we think because I think the Texans defense is better than we give them credit for being this year than in previous years. They played really well against a really good Baltimore offense. I think that came down to their offense not performing as well. So I got the Steelers winning by 3, but the spread being 3.5 Steelers.
Gotcha. I think Pittsburgh didn't look as good as they would have wanted against Denver Broncos, especially with Drew Lock going out, and it's still being a close game with Driscoll stepping in. I think Pittsburgh comes out, they kind of dominate like they did in week 1. So I'm going to go, I think the spread is 5 going Pittsburgh's way, but I think they win by a touchdown at least. And so in reality here, Pittsburgh's only favored by 3.5. This is a little bit closer. So, Side, kudos to you for getting that one. So we have about 6 more games, guys, and we'll call it. The New York Jets playing at Si's Indianapolis Colts. Si, I'll let you kick this one off, and then Ev can go next.
I feel like the spread will probably be like 8.5 to 9. I'm going to say 9 will probably be the spread, just because the Jets have been losing as much as they have recently. Honestly, I think that's probably a fair guess, estimate. I think we probably end up winning by 2 possessions, but I don't think it's going to be some blowout game, because I know the Colts well enough to know that when we're playing a team that isn't known to be very good offensively, we stick to the whole script of run, and then just stop them on defense with our Tampa 2 system that we run. So I think we'll win, but it won't be a high-scoring game. I think the Colts will win by 8 points in a not so high-scoring game, but I think the Colts probably favored 9.
Yeah, I'll say the spread's 7. And I agree. Obviously, I think the Colts are going to win, but I think it'll be a lower scoring game. I don't think the Jets will score hardly at all. But I also don't think the Colts are going to go out and, score a ton of points either. So I'll give them a 10-point win, but that's mainly because I don't think the Jets are going to really score.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I think the spread's at least 7. I'll go 7.5, and I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I see Indianapolis kind of pulling away early and then holding that lead. And so in reality, the spread is 10.5, which is the highest spread we've seen so far. Arizona's hosting Detroit. Detroit's looking for that first win. What do you guys think happens in this one?
Upset alert. Give me a spread of 6 to Arizona, and we get a big upset here. I'm still waiting for Detroit to upset someone. I thought they might I didn't think they would get Green Bay. I thought they had a chance. They didn't. They got crushed. I'm still waiting for Detroit to upset someone. Let's say it's here. Again, like I said last week, let's pump the brakes on Arizona a little bit. And I think Stafford goes out there and plays great and gets a win. Spread 6, though.
I think the spread's,
I guess.
Yeah, I think the spread's 4.5 to the Cardinals. But I think Kenny Golladay is the big deciding factor here. He's on pace to play this week. We don't know that for a fact. But if Kenny Golladay plays that game, I'm picking Detroit this week as well, because Stafford is a dog. I'm not betting again. He can go out and beat really good teams, and I think so far he hasn't had as much of a supporting system with Golladay out. But with Golladay back, I think the Lions can go out there and win that game by a field goal. So I think the Lions with Golladay win by a field goal, because I think the Cardinals are getting a little bit overhyped after 2 admittedly not so amazing wins. I mean, they beat, no offense to Evs, but they beat the Washington football team, which really didn't look that great. And then they won week 1 with the Niners losing people, and especially with them coming in with no receivers that game. In both those games, they weren't playing like the greatest of teams. So I think the Cardinals lose it if Golladay plays by 3, but I think they'll be favored 4.5.
Yeah, and I keep looking at the spreads now. So the spread is 5.5. So Ev, you get the notch there for Arizona. But one thing I want to keep in mind, or at least give credit to, is Jeff Okudah was out week 1. This is the number 3 pick in the 2020 draft. So he's a rookie out of Ohio State, and he's had to play corner against 2 receivers in week 2 and now week 3 against D-Hop this week, and he had to play against Devontae Adams. God bless that man's soul for 2 of arguably the best receivers in the league that he's had to play against. But moving forward here, we have the Cowboys after their recent miracle win at the Seattle Seahawks. Who you guys have in this?
I'll say spread is Seattle 5 points. And I say they beat the spread and win by a touchdown.
I literally am almost exact the same. I was going to say Seahawks 4.5. I think Seattle wins by a touchdown.
See, I'm the opposite. I think Dallas, they have so much talent, but they just are so undisciplined. I think they kind of get a little bit more tight-knit here. They have a good practice this week. I think they come out and upset Seattle. I think the spread's going to be 3.5 Seattle, but I think Cowboys win by 10. I think it's going to be a bloodbath.
Who?
And I think the Cowboys come out and show Seattle who's
Zach's just trying to protect his Falcons reputation.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So Seattle's favored 4.5 here. And then so we have the Sunday night game. This is Green Bay at New Orleans. Shocker, New Orleans gets another night game here. Who do you guys have winning this one?
I'll say the spread is 2 in favor of New Orleans. Yeah, that might be high. But and I'll say Green Bay wins by a field goal or so.
I think the spread will favor Green Bay if Michael Thomas isn't playing. Like if Michael Thomas isn't playing, I definitely think Green Bay. Although there is a chance Devontae Adams doesn't play either, so like it really depends on which one of those guys are healthy. So I think the spread is like subject to change. If Devontae Adams is playing and Michael Thomas isn't playing, which is a potential likely outcome, knocking on wood because I want Adams to play. But I think if that ends up being the case, then Green Bay will be favored by 2.5. And that's what I'm just going to go. I'm going to go under that assumption. If that ends up being the case, Green Bay by 2.5. I actually think in that situation, Green Bay does win by, I'm going to say a touchdown, just because without Michael Thomas, it's going to be really hard to keep up with Rodgers the way that he is playing. Like he looks like the Rodgers of old, like, the Rodgers that I always believed he could be. Like, I just don't see him slowing down. So, and Aaron Jones has just been unstoppable. So I think the Packers win by a touchdown if they have Devonta and the Saints don't have Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I would say I would lean more with Cy on this one. I think this is going to be a spread that goes Green Bay's way. I would say 1.5, but I do think that Green Bay is going to cover that for sure. I think I can see kind of a game where I know Drew Brees is going to try to battle back. Very rarely does Drew Brees lose 2 in a row, but I think Aaron Rodgers is playing great, and I think the Packers win by a touchdown or more. So I'm going to go with that. And in reality, New Orleans is favored by 3.
Wow.
That might be something to bet on there, Mr. Kuna.
Wow.
They're at home. They're at home.
Yeah, they are at home, but
They are.
surprised me.
Again, the fans make a big impact, but I mean they're dominant at home. So
They are. This is true.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
All right, so the final game, the Monday night game, is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens, a game that many expected to happen in the AFC Championship last year. What do you guys have in this matchup here?
Where is it? Is it in Kansas City or is it in Baltimore?
It's in Baltimore.
Okay. What do you got?
So I'm going to say that Baltimore gets the home bump and they're favored by 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I will take Baltimore to win by a field goal, we'll say.
I'm going to say Baltimore gets the home bump by 2.5. I think Kansas City wins by a touchdown. I think Kansas City, after almost blowing it to the Chargers last week, is going to come out there, angry. And I think Mahomes is just going to really turn it up. And I think Tyreek Hill is going to get way more involved this week than he was last week. And just ultimately, I just think Kansas City is really going to want to make a statement. So I think they'll win by a touchdown.
So I think that Baltimore will get that home bump as well. I think it's going to be 3.5 spread, and I think Baltimore wins by 10. I think Baltimore really comes out and they shock people, and I think they're angry. I think they're going to play very angry, especially at home. It's hard to win in that city, in that stadium, in M&T Bank. So I'm going to go Baltimore wins by a touchdown or more, but I think the spread is going to be 3.5. And okay, I did not look at this one. It is 3.5 Baltimore. So that's how we're going to end it. Those are our week 3 matchups. I'm not sure if you guys have any last things to say to our subscribers, our listeners. But outside of that, I think we can close this out.
That's all I got.
Cool. I love that, guys. I love that. Looking forward to rehashing what we said and seeing who came out on top here. So as a pleasure, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you to everybody that listens and subscribes. We would love for you guys to check out our Insta. We'll be hitting you with some posts there. So that's about it. With that being said, that was Mondays Down South. Take care, boys.
Later.
They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.